Lawsuit has been filed against Smith County and its former jail medical provider, Turnkey Health. That suit alleges jailers failed to give an inmate, 24-year-old Devontae Valentine, his medication for a rare genetic disorder, which led to his death. And while Smith County has declined comment, KLTV7's JD Conti spoke with the family's lawyer.
Everybody dropped the ball. It just doesn't make a lot of sense.
On December 4th, 2022, Devontae Valentine's family made the decision to take him off life support 6 days after he was found unresponsive inside his Smith County jail cell. Valentine had congenital adrenal hyperplasia, a rare genetic disorder that affects the adrenal glands. He was arrested by the Tyler Police Department on November 16th for aggravated assault with a deadly weapon and booked into the county jail. A 56-page federal lawsuit filed in the Eastern District of Texas alleges jail staff never gave him his medication.
Instead of someone contacting a pharmacy or a doctor about the steroids went right into the locker with his other property. And Devontae survived just a matter of days.
Dean Malone is representing the Valentine family. The lawsuit, filed against Smith County and Turnkey Health Clinics, says Devontae's family hand-delivered medication to the jail after he was arrested, but he never received them. The Smith County Jail no longer uses Turnkey for inmate medical services, opting for a local provider at the start of 2024. Part of the family's argument that Devontae was not able to advocate for himself. The suit says jail records listed Devontae as special needs.
He really did not have a good understanding of what medications he needed and when he needed to take them.
The lawsuit details the Texas Rangers report of Devontae's death. In the investigation, the suit claims a doctor says, quote, "If the family brought up the medications and he didn't get them, then that's going to be on us."
A doctor at Turnkey Health admitted that somebody dropped the ball, that these prescriptions should have been filled, that the medication should have been administered.
The suit alleges jailers had 3 separate interactions with Devontae on the night he was brought to the hospital. The report of one jailer reads that at 4:30 a.m., Devontae was slow to respond when he was on the ground. Officer Middlecoff got Devontae off the floor and into his bunk. Devontae had a gash in the corner of his eye area, and he was bleeding. The suit goes on. At 5:30 a.m., Devontae stopped walking and collapsed at a staircase, while Officer Courtney was attempting to keep him upright. Then at 6:30, jailers are alerted to Devontae again. He was unresponsive and was brought to the hospital. 6 days later, Devontae died at the hospital after his family decided to take him off life support.
You make phone calls to the jail, you talk to your son at the jail, you've done everything you can do, and then you find yourself at your son's bedside in a hospital, having to make the decision, hey, do we remove him from life support?
The autopsy report, which the suit quotes, says Devontae was suffering from organ failure and adds that Devontae was not given his prescribed steroids, although it is uncertain if the jail knew of the descendant's underlying congenital adrenal hyperplasia, which required steroid therapy. The report continues. It was him not receiving his prescribed steroids which resulted in adrenal crisis and ultimately his death. The report says the night he was taken to the hospital was not the first incident. On November 25th, he was seen by jail medical staff for nausea and vomiting over 2 days.
Everybody knew that this man needed medication. By everybody, I mean the county knew and Turnkey Health knew by virtue of the fact that the bottles of medication were at the jail.
The Valentine family is seeking a jury trial for damages in a federal courtroom. JD Conti, KLTV7 News.
We reached out to both parties named in the suit. Smith County District Attorney Jacob Putman responded saying the county cannot comment on pending litigation. Now, we also reached out to Turnkey Health. A rep says, unfortunately, Turnkey Health can't comment on cases involved in ongoing litigation, as commenting might impede the legal process. They go on to say, we can say that we're proud of our team and the medical care they provide at correctional facilities throughout the region.